Kamen under Gavv is a Japanese superhero show where our main heroes are themed around candies and snacks. Much like a lot of Kamen under series, it takes an outwardly silly premise but generally presents it with decent melodrama and stylish action. On the point of stylish action, I'd say 90% of the time, Kamen under action scenes rarely fail me. Even the more forgettable ones are at minimum pretty decent stuff. However, under suit actor veteran turned action director Satoshi Fujita's lead, the crew of the show put some of the best Kamen Rider fights of all time to screen in Gavv. It's not just the clean CGI effects over big punches that make the action so great this time around, it's all in the mechanical nuts and bolts about how the Kamen Riders use their powers and surroundings to beat the bad guy. Each form in Gavv has their own unique properties relating to the snack they're based on, that the staff uses very creatively to make consistently exciting fights. From the potato chips form's precise blades, to the ice cream form's icy abilities, to the style switching of speed and power of Gavv's final form, the toyetic power set is so well thought out both in and out of show, which makes it a joy to watch. From a pure visual film standpoint, I can easily see why it's hooking in so many new Kamen Rider fans into the series with this massive step up in production value that I hope Zets and future entries can keep up. Now let's dig into the narrative and thematic contents of Gavv. This series revolves around monstrous beings called Granutes. High class of Granutes are using humans to make dark treats to make money off the impoverished lower class of Granutes. The main protagonist of Gavv is Shoma, a half-human, half-Granute hybrid who must stop his abusive family of siblings at Stomach Inc. from taking more human lives from the world his mother loved. For most of Shoma's life, he and his mother were locked up and abused by Stomach Inc., with only garbage food to keep them company. The only light at the end of the tunnel for Shoma was hearing little tales of the human world and its cuisine through his mother. Eventually, Shoma finally escapes to the human world on his own, using the red Gavv attached to his stomach to become Kamen Rider Gavv, proceeding to use the powers of his new experiences and snacks in the human world to fight off the forces of his traumatizing past. Shoma's quite the carefree individual as he finds happiness in the little things and moments the human world has to offer that others might take for granted. This makes sense, as Shoma was deprived of joy and interesting food for so long that even something as simple as a marshmallow can give him a whirlwind of emotions. Shoma's a really well-rounded protagonist for this series, mixing the darker and whimsical elements of Gavv quite well as its poster boy. For the secondary writer of the show, there's Hanto, a human detective who went through some messed up surgeries to become Kamen Rider Valen in order to get vengeance for his fallen boss. What initially starts off as a dark quest of hatred eventually becomes one of friendship, as he learns to trust Shoma and his friends to emotionally move on in order to become stronger. I like Hanto fine enough, but I find it a bit disappointing how he gets his final form earlier than the other two writers, which leads to him being unfairly jobbed a lot in the second half of the show, but he still has his cool moments and is a worthwhile addition to the cast, especially as he gives us one of Gavv's best villains, Suga, aka Kamen Rider Bank. Due to some implied family trauma, Suga believes that human beings are too fragile on their own. That's why he began to research Granutes to create the ultimate life form. This quest leads Suga to making the bitter Gavv belt, which leads us to a clone saga of Dark Shomas running around for a few episodes. Suga's got a lot of charisma, which helps make his manipulation of Hanto more believable, but that charisma also shields his inner feelings about how weak he finds humans to be in comparison to the fantastical feats of the Kamen Riders and Granutes. Suga's character is definitely a classic cautionary tale of going too far of dangerous science, but the writing and the actor give what could be a tired cliche an extra oomph. In terms of the main non-writer supporting characters, Sachika is a bubbly, positive Garu who runs an odd job services that helps others smile. She sadly doesn't get a lot to do in terms of her own character arc compared to other supporting characters in Kamen Rider, but she's still great at being a solid supporting character for the heroes in both their dramatic and lighthearted moments. Rounding off the main trio of heroic Kamen Riders, we have Lekia, aka Kamen Rider Vram. Lekia starts off as a chaotic neutral force, taking jobs for the high-class Granutes to eventually defeat them from the inside, but quickly turns heel to the hero side once she forms friendships with Shoma, Sachika, and eventually Hanto. I like Lekia quite a bit. He can get easily annoyed, but he's so laid back that it doesn't really faze him when he has to be forced to do something. Unfortunately, his backstory ties into one of Gavv's weaker elements, the villains and the ensuing metaphors they present. Starting off with the monsters of the week, most of them are drug addicts going for their next fix of dark treats, so they need to help Stomach Inc. to create more dark treats through devious schemes. You would think this would give the show the perfect opportunity to subvert the trope of defeating the monster even on occasion, maybe even help them in a kid show sort of way. Nope, almost every monster of the week is defeated in this show, and the one episode where the monster asks for forgiveness is revealed to be a lie. In a show with metaphors about human trafficking and drug abuse, this is a very concerning message with how to help addicts deal with their addiction that I'm sure the writers didn't intend. They probably got a bunch of other stuff going on in the show, but still an unfortunate and very underdeveloped blemish on the show. As for the main recurring villains at Stomach Inc., despite having great designs and personalities to start with, they sadly only get focused in very specific moments, often two-parters where they're destined to die by the end. Those two-parters are often good explorations into their villainy and what makes them tick, but that's all they get, which is a shame because some extra flavor text throughout the show for the villains would go a long way than just the necessary character beats for these guys to be fleshed out enough. I think the cast of villains are serviceable, but they could have gone farther with them, especially with such great personalities and actors attached. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to shout out the Gochizos, the little gimmick candy items that Gavv uses to transform, because I love these guys a lot. They might be my favorite Kamen Rider gimmick, not just because they look funny, but because in the show they help Shoma, and when you eat them, you actually, eat them. They actually, are shown to die when you use their powers. That's some crazy resource management I didn't expect and some grim implications. Shout out to that one commenter who told me to talk about the Gochizos in the Gavv analysis. You're a legend. Ultimately, despite my complaints with some missed opportunities and weird implications, as a show, Kamen Rider Gavv is a tasty treat. It updates classic Kamen Rider tropes from the modern age, while still not forgetting what brought the series its current modern appeal and upping those aspects to even further heights. I can see why some people are calling it their favorite Reiwa Kamen Rider, or even up there with their favorite Kamen Rider series, but personally Gotchard from last year hit a bit harder for me in terms of characters and themes, but Gavv is still an amazing show that I would highly recommend for both newcomers and veterans.